So we're back to focusing on how to, of course, do something about the economy. Well, we're joined now by Martin Onovo, who is a former presidential candidate of the NCP. Morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
What have you been up to ever since?
Well, first is try to recover from the strain and the stress of elections, and secondly is go back to my regular activities. I'm not a professional politician. I'm a professional in politics, so go back to my regular activities.
Well, now we need a professional touch to the economy in terms of what needs to be done to put us on the right track. You've also been observing what's going on. I mean, some people they're talking about if we're giving a lemon, let's make it lemonade. How would you assess our approach to ensuring that things don't go further south about the economy?
You see, it's very simple. First is we must accept the reality. Second is that we must be very clear about our objectives. Very clear. Once you achieve those two, you accept your reality, you're clear about your objectives, then you can develop your strategy. It is based on your strategy that you detail your plans. So when people say the government doesn't have a blueprint, that's what they're talking about. These are things you should have done up front. Immediately after the elections, of course, all of us campaigned with economic directions. But immediately after the elections, you don't wait to be sworn in. That's part of a transition process. You work it and you detail it. The strategy becomes clear. Your team, you don't announce it to the public, but you make your team immediately. You don't waste time, because time will not waste for you. So even while you're contesting, you have an idea of those you want to work with. So these are the people you start to bring in. You start to respect the position of the party and bring in some of the party people who the party will nominate for you to work with. You bring them in. Then you walk through that your vision with them. This is early. This is before you're sworn in.
All this can be done before that swearing-in day?
For example, in Nigeria, we had the elections in March. Swearing-in was in May. There was 2 full months of work to be done. Prior to all that nonsense and euphoria and noise.
There was a transition committee. Weren't they working?
Well, it's obvious now. You know, the results don't lie. You're the most brilliant student in the class, but you come last. The results don't lie. You're not the most brilliant student in the class. If you're the most brilliant student in the class and you don't come first, you don't come second, then maybe you come third. Maybe something happened. But you come last and you say you're the most brilliant student in the class. So the results don't lie. Oh. And you remember all the controversies at that time.
What does that mean? I mean, when you say the results don't lie, are you saying that the committee was playing?
Well,
or that who exactly came last here?
Well,
I get that.
If the CBN can officially say that the directionlessness of the government economic policy is hurting the economy, I don't know what other result you want to hear.
The CBN,
that is the CBN.
The CBN said that directionlessness.
Well, maybe not those exact words, but it's very clear that the CBN said that the lack of a clear economic direction was hurting the economy. And it's not only the CBN that said that. I'm only using the CBN.
When did they say that? I didn't quite catch that.
You see, you didn't catch a lot of things. And that's why I said the results don't lie. Now, if you also, for example, if I ask you now, what's the economic direction? I'm sure you can't answer it clearly and confidently. And it's the same way you don't know it.
I'm not the CBN.
I'm coming.
What I'm saying is, when did the CBN say that?
It's the political leadership that dictates that. And the CBN was reported by the media which you belong to.
That's what I'm saying. So I didn't catch that. I mean, I've listened to the CBN governor several times speaking. Okay. I mean, even yesterday he briefed, but I didn't hear him say that the directionlessness.
Maybe I will reference it and send it to you. But that's very clear. And your surprise shocks me because it looks like you came from the moon. That's the major topic in the country about the economy. What's the direction?
You're not getting my point. We're trying not to mislead people. Okay. We're a media organization, and when you say the CBN said, you're not saying that the directionlessness. I don't know.
When you paraphrase and when you quote, I didn't say I quoted.
Good. So, what were you doing?
But that's the import. I paraphrased.
I think it's
so that is from you.
No, I paraphrased what the CBN said.
It's very important to understand that meanings.
The exact choice of words might not be exactly the same.
Mr. Onovo,
but I'm sure I can find it and give it to you.
Mr. Onovo, it's very important to state that meanings are in people. If that was what you got from what the CBN has. The CBN governor has, spoken so many times. But if that was what you got from a particular statement, I think it's very important so that people can reference that particular statement that the CBN made and see if they get the same meaning that you got from it.
Excellent.
That's why I'm asking you, when did the CBN say what it is that you said?
Do you expect me to remember the exact date and the exact medium? Is that what you expect? I'm sure that's not what you expect. That I can discriminate whether I heard this news on channels or Silverbird or AIT. Is that what you expect?
Did you
and
hear,
on date?
Did you hear it this year, last year? When did you hear it?
This year, just a few weeks back.
Okay.
That's what I said earlier. And I'm surprised that you're insisting on this, because I'm sure that if I ask you, who should be informing me as a journalist, what's the economic direction of this government, I'm sure you can't answer. Because it's the discussion in the media. What's the direction? I don't know the direction. I'm interested in the direction. I'm a stakeholder, a major stakeholder. I'm interested. And everybody else is. And that's what's being discussed everywhere. So those things need to be clear. The role of leadership needs to be clear. Once you can define your objectives, identify your strategy, work out your plans. And what I was saying is that if you are proactive, you could have done this with the 2 months you had even before swearing in. And that's what you talk about, hit the ground running. Hit the ground running is not magical, it's not mystical.
So that has not
It's that you have done some upfront work. That's what it means.
Mr. Onovo, for you, and I think for a lot of people too, there was strong criticism of the president when they said that he did not set to work on time, and it took him how many months to appoint his ministers. But
if I ask you where you read that and which date and what time, will you remember?
Just a moment. Just a moment.
Sure.
I think I'm speaking. I mean, we all live in this country, and we know when the president appointed his ministers. We
Sure.
also do know when he was sworn in.
Sure.
May 29 was the day he was sworn in. We also know when he appointed his ministers. So there was criticism about that space. So that everybody can attest to. But when he eventually appointed his ministers, quite a number of people felt that they will be able to see the economic direction of this government from its budget. When the budget is out now, it's been presented, it's been laid before the National Assembly. What do you make of the budget?
Very good. This is an excellent question, because the first concrete indication of economic direction was the budget. The first concrete indication. Now, from your medium-term economic framework, that budget was supposed to be, the proposal was supposed to be presented in August. Right now, I would say it was presented in January. You know why? Because the current version that is being looked at was just presented this January. So when you're late, is that going to help your effectiveness and productivity? I don't think so. That's first. Second, what we can do with that budget is only infer the direction. And there are two things that come out of that budget, from my perspective. And I've called it a budget of ruination. Ruination.
What does that mean?
Ruin. To ruin the Nigerian economy. And if you look at that budget, for example, you said the key is to borrow heavily to fund infrastructure. You borrow nearly 40%. But the same budget represents only 30% for capital projects. Contradiction. Logical contradiction. What could have been done, knowing the level of waste we have in our recurrent expenditure, was to cut some of that down and transfer some of that to the capital side to pursue the same developmental projects you're talking about. Now, that would have been more surgical, that would have been more strategic. And that was what the National Congress Party proposed to do. Okay, the country as of today is owing nearly $70 billion. You will now offer to go and borrow another 2.2 trillion. What's the payment plan? How are we going to pay for this? Maybe you'll help us pay for it. It's not a grant.
I'm happy you're talking about the budget now, which is a direction. And it then means
No. The budget is the funding of your plan.
And that's
the direction comes up front.
And that's a direction.
Let's put the horse before the cart.
So that we don't start defining
Let's
direction.
put the horse before the cart.
But it was what you said. I mean,
and you also used the word that the first concrete direction.
Yes,
indication of direction.
That was what you said.
Excuse me, Mr. Onovo, you just said it a while ago. We can get that repeated before you leave if you wanted us.
I'll be glad if we do that.
You'll be glad if we do that?
I'll be very glad if we do that.
All right, because you said the first concrete direction of this administration.
Indication of direction.
Is the budget.
No, the budget is
if it is the budget, we're trying to open the budget bit by bit, and you just said that the budget is akin to what you would say as a ruin to the nation's economy.
A budget of ruination.
And perhaps you want to look at them bit by bit further, since you are also one of those who indicated interest in running the affairs of the country as a presidential candidate. What would you have done differently?
I just mentioned the major thing we could have done differently, directionally. We could have, there's so much waste in the so-called recurrent expenditure. It's clearly over-bloated and wasteful and unproductive. We need to cut some of that.
For instance?
I don't have the exact figures in my head, but if you hear the figures from the public purse for medical tourism, it is significant. It is very significant. I have never gone abroad for medical checkup. I talk for myself now.